So today we're going to talk about some unique challenges that we face when we're dealing with blended families. With blended families, we have to be very cautious about how we plan the estate plan because we don't want to disinherit one of the spouse's children accidentally. We want to make sure that when one spouse dies, the surviving spouse doesn't have the ability to change the estate plan and disinherit the deceased spouse's children. And so when we have kids from separate marriages, this may be our second or third or fourth marriage, and we each have kids from previous marriages, there are some tools in our tool belt that we have as estate planning attorneys that we can ensure that everybody's provided for, nobody's cut out, and everything's taken care of. But we have to make sure we're doing it correctly, and this is where we see a lot of mistakes being made in the estate planning world, is where we try to put everything in the same box, and you kind of have to think outside the box when we're dealing with blended families. One of the biggest things is for personal property. So for jewelry, artwork, furniture, TVs, couches, family heirlooms, photo albums that we may have, we're coming into this marriage with our own separate stuff. We're moving into the one house together. I may come into this marriage with my own photo albums of my children and family heirlooms that I'm coming in with, and my wife may be coming in with her own stuff as well. And when death occurs, as we understand, it's very understandable, it's a very emotional thing, and so I want to make sure that my children, when I pass away, are going to be receiving those things that I came into the marriage with, the photo albums of my children and maybe family heirlooms that I've had for a very long time. If I don't plan for those things, then all those things will go to my wife, and then inevitably when she passes away, they may all be going to her children, and then my children don't get those things. And so we do have what's called a personal property memorandum that we put inside of our binder that allows each spouse to say, when I die, I want the photo albums to go here, I want the family heirloom to go there. And then the trustee of the trust has a fiduciary obligation to make sure that those items are distributed to those children upon my death or upon my wife's death, ensuring that those things are given to them and they're taken care of. So personal property is number one. Number two is, and when it comes to the assets as well, what we can do, typically what we do is we create a revocable living trust. And so what we can do is create one joint married trust for both husband and wife. We could also create two separate trusts if we needed to do that. But we could do one joint married trust. We dump all the assets into the joint married trust. And then when one spouse dies, we can put a clause in this trust that says the deceased spouse's share of the assets in the joint married trust are going to be carved out. And they're going to go into what we call a Q-tip trust. Kind of, you think of like the thing you put in your ear to clean out your wax, but this is not that. It stands for Qualified Terminable Interest Property Trust. And what that allows us to do is to take the deceased spouse's interest in these assets and dump them into a special little trust over here that the surviving spouse has access to for their lifetime. They can use the income and some of the principal if we give them the discretion over the principal. And then this is an irrevocable trust, so surviving spouse can't change it, cannot alter it, cannot amend it, they can't revoke it, they can't change the terms of this trust to cut out my children. And then when my wife finally passes away, so now both of us are dead, whatever was left in this irrevocable trust, this Q-tip trust, would end up going where I, the first spouse to die, where I wanted it to go, which would be my children. Let's say I have 4 children from a previous marriage. So I came into the marriage with 4 kids. Let's say my wife came into the marriage with 3 children. These are my separate children. So now my estate, when my wife finally dies, will end up going to my 4 children. And that makes sure that she can't disinherit them after I pass away. So they're going to get that share. It also makes it so that during my wife's lifetime, she has access to this money if she needs it. Once again, I have to give her access to all of the income from this trust during her lifetime, and I can decide how much of the principal of this trust she can use as well. This I can limit, this she has to have access to, and that's how that works. Another way we could do it, instead of doing the Q-tip trust, is we could just say, hey, immediately upon the first spouse's death, if I'm the first spouse to die, I want my assets to go directly to my kids. So now my wife doesn't have access to that portion that would be my share. I don't put it in a trust for her. I just say upon my death, these assets go out and go to my children. And then whatever her share of these assets are stays in this trust for the remainder of her lifetime. And then when she passes away, whatever assets are left in this trust can go to her 3 children. So that's another way that we can do that. The main thing is to always be thinking about when death occurs. Sometimes the surviving spouse gets remarried. Sometimes the surviving spouse falls out of favor with my children because they don't write, they don't call, they don't send the birthday cards and check in on her. And so then she has some resentment and she may decide to cut them out. And it works both ways. So I'm just saying she because it's our lot in life as men to typically die first, but she could certainly die first and I could have the same issues where I'm like, I don't like her kids, I want to cut them out. And I could get remarried and I want to leave it all to my new spouse. So it works both ways. Our goal as estate planning attorneys is to make sure that we're not disinheriting people that should be receiving a portion of the estate. So with blended families, it is complicated. We do have tools in our tool belt that can help. Hopefully that helps you.